Born on the 4th of March, 1981, in New York, Sarah Ann Wood was nurtured in a household imbued with strong religious values. Her father, a respected pastor, led a small congregation in a rural community situated centrally within the state. From her earliest years, Sarah, alongside her elder sister and brother, regularly participated in church services and attended Sunday school classes. Beyond her spiritual engagement, Sarah was a remarkably lively and expressive child. She found immense joy in dance, had a deep appreciation for poetry, and was a dedicated member of her school's cheerleading squad. A beloved pastime for her was cycling. Her bicycle served as her primary mode of transport to her father's church, located less than a mile from their residence. She would frequently make the short trip for worship, educational sessions, or simply to assist her father with various tasks. On that fateful Wednesday, the 18th of August, 1993, Sarah, adhering to her customary routine, cycled to church for her Sunday school lessons. These sessions were typically conducted by other congregation members, allowing her father to remain at home. Her parents fully anticipated Sarah's return home right after the afternoon classes. However, as the clock steadily advanced and she failed to appear, a deep-seated apprehension began to take hold. Following a period of increasing anxiety, they made their way to the church, initially believing Sarah might have lingered with her friends. To their mounting dismay, she was nowhere to be found. The Sunday school instructors confirmed her departure on her bike immediately after classes, also noting that she had carried with her a selection of books, several brightly colored folders, and a small display board. This information significantly escalated their concern. The ride home from the church should have occupied mere minutes, and it was highly improbable Sarah would have diverted her path, especially burdened with those items. Moreover, it was ingrained in her habit to always seek permission before venturing anywhere beyond her direct route. As they retraced her expected path from the church, her parents desperately questioned neighbors along the way, hoping for any glimpse of their daughter. Given the compact nature of the town and her father's widely recognized presence through his ministry, dozens of individuals rapidly joined the impromptu search. A crucial witness soon surfaced, recalling seeing Sarah cycling in the direction of her home around 2:30 p.m., a mere few hundred yards from her own residence. This close proximity intensified her parents' terror. They were now almost convinced a grave misfortune had befallen Sarah and promptly decided to contact the police. The local police department swiftly initiated a full-scale search operation, deploying scores of officers. The county sheriff also sought assistance from the fire department, further bolstering the rapidly expanding effort. Word of Sarah's disappearance spread with astonishing speed throughout the area, drawing in dozens of spontaneous volunteers within the initial hours. Indeed, several hundred individuals were already engaged in the search by evening. Police initially focused their efforts on the direct route from the church to Sarah's home, meticulously combing the fields and wooded areas flanking both sides of the road. Their diligent search soon uncovered the first disturbing clue. Just a short distance into the woods, Sarah's bicycle was found propped against a tree. Concentrating on that immediate vicinity, law enforcement soon located the items Sarah had brought from Sunday school, carefully concealed beneath a bush. These unsettling discoveries led investigators to a somber conclusion. It was highly probable that Sarah had been forcibly taken. They theorized that an unidentified assailant had likely dragged her from the roadway into the nearby woods, abandoned her belongings there to buy time, and then transported her away by car. The police department committed all its available resources to the intensifying investigation. Simultaneously, Sarah's distraught family members, unable to endure the waiting, began to create and print flyers containing vital information about her disappearance. With the tremendous help of numerous volunteers, these flyers were distributed not only within their hometown but also in adjacent communities, in an effort to broaden the search. Despite all these concerted efforts, the initial day of the search concluded without any positive outcome. Police and volunteers relentlessly scoured an area spanning several miles from the road until nightfall, but regrettably, no further leads emerged. The search recommenced the following morning with even greater numbers of participants. The state police became actively involved, shifting the primary focus towards identifying a potential suspect. Investigators systematically questioned every resident in the town, hoping someone might have noticed a stranger or an unfamiliar vehicle that could be linked to Sarah's disappearance. Sarah's parents, exhibiting extraordinary fortitude amidst their grief, established an impromptu headquarters managed by dozens of devoted volunteers. From here, they coordinated the production and distribution of additional flyers, while also diligently pursuing any potential witnesses or clues that might bring them closer to locating Sarah. Local media outlets quickly began covering the poignant case, and within days, news of Sarah's disappearance had reached a national audience. Police received over 1,000 tips, each painstakingly vetted, but every lead consistently led to a dead end. Concerned community members rallied to assist the parents in raising a substantial $150,000 reward for any information regarding Sarah's whereabouts. Yet this significant incentive also, regrettably, failed to produce any breakthroughs. The intensive ground search phase continued for approximately a week, but eventually, law enforcement concluded that finding valuable leads through further physical searches in the immediate area was unlikely. The case remained active, with detectives now concentrating solely on identifying a potential abductor. They thoroughly scrutinized local residents and reviewed the records of convicted criminals from neighboring towns. But these inquiries, too, yielded no definitive results. Sarah's disappearance was eventually featured on 2 widely watched national television programs, which generated a fresh influx of tips, though none proved actionable. Her parents also made regular, heartfelt appeals to the public through various media channels, desperately pleading for any information about their daughter's fate. But, heartbreakingly, Sarah's whereabouts remained an agonizing mystery. This torturous uncertainty persisted for nearly 6 months, until an entirely unforeseen development occurred, many miles away from Sauquat. On the morning of the 7th of January, 1994, a 12-year-old named Rebecca Savarese, often referred to as Becky, departed from her Massachusetts home and began her walk to school. As she traversed a deserted street, she noticed a man accompanying her. He uttered something, but Rebecca, wearing headphones, initially didn't register his words. Upon removing them, the man's demeanor abruptly shifted. He produced a handgun and, in a chilling tone, stated that if she complied, he would not harm her. Grabbing her jacket, he compelled her to continue walking in the same direction. Rebecca was gripped by fear, hesitant to scream or attempt an escape, yet she possessed a terrifying realization. Even if she obeyed, he might still take her life. As they neared a vehicle, Rebecca's sharp instincts took over. She cleverly feigned an asthma attack, struggling dramatically for breath. Collapsing to the ground, the man, momentarily disoriented, relaxed his grip on her jacket. He still held the edge of her backpack, but in that crucial instant, as she continued her convincing portrayal of suffocation, Rebecca managed to slip free from the backpack straps and sprinted away from her would-be captor. Just a few hundred yards distant, Rebecca spotted several adults. She raced toward them, breathless, exclaiming that she had just been the target of an abduction attempt. Meanwhile, the kidnapper, alarmed by her escape, hastily entered his car and sped off, taking Rebecca's backpack with him. One of the witnesses, demonstrating remarkable civic courage, decided to follow the assailant in his own vehicle, tailing him for several minutes before pulling into the nearest gas station to contact the police. This witness provided authorities with a partial license plate number and the model of the kidnapper's car, while Rebecca, despite her ordeal, was able to furnish a detailed description of his appearance. Police immediately initiated a comprehensive search for the vehicle, cross-referencing databases for matching cars and broadcasting information to neighboring towns. Their diligent efforts bore fruit that same evening when an alert officer, patrolling a small town a few miles away, suddenly noticed a vehicle that perfectly matched the description. He stopped and approached the house where it was parked. Several individuals were inside, and the officer inquired about the pickup truck's owner. The owner explained that he was visually impaired and had not used the vehicle in a considerable time. Instead, his neighbor, 43-year-old Louis Stephen Lent Jr., frequently borrowed it. Louis, a local handyman, regularly assisted his blind neighbor with various household chores in exchange for access to the pickup. Lent asserted that his last use of the truck was the previous day, and he hadn't driven it since. Despite his denial, the officer requested that he accompany him to the station for questioning, and Louis readily agreed. At the station, Louis initially maintained his insistence on innocence, claiming he hadn't operated the pickup that day and vehemently denying any involvement in the attempted abduction. He presented himself as a devout Christian who dedicated most of his leisure time to church activities, asserting he would never commit such an act. While Lewis was being questioned, police took his photograph and incorporated it into a photo lineup alongside images of other men. Rebecca and the other witnesses unanimously identified Lewis as the kidnapper. Rebecca, who had seen him at an extremely close range, less than a yard away, stated with unwavering certainty that he was indeed the individual who attempted to abduct her. Investigators swiftly secured warrants to search Lewis's residence and vehicles. Inside the pickup truck owned by his neighbor, they made a disturbing discovery: a small bag containing duct tape, a knife, children's sunglasses, and candy. In the van, which belonged to Lewis and was also parked near the house, police located a handgun and, critically, Rebecca's backpack. Within Lewis's house, investigators unearthed something even more startling: a large, concealed room still under construction, meticulously excavated beneath the structure of the house itself. Armed with this overwhelming evidence, police promptly arrested Lewis for the attempted abduction. Initially, he clung to his pretense of innocence, but under sustained interrogation, he ultimately decided to confess to everything. He admitted that he had deliberately traveled to Rebecca's town, specifically seeking a victim, carrying his horrifying kidnapping bag, which he perpetually kept ready in his vehicle. Lewis then unveiled the chilling purpose of the secret room he was digging beneath his house, a narrative that profoundly shocked even seasoned police officers. He intended to transform it into a full-fledged bunker, a clandestine prison where he planned to hold kidnapped victims. Lewis chillingly articulated his abhorrent goal: to abduct 11 girls, aged 12 to 17, to fulfill his depraved fantasies. He added that, until the subterranean chamber was completed, he did not intend to retain his victims for extended periods, planning to murder them within a few days of their abduction. Inside Lewis's house, police also found a meticulously maintained list containing several names. Upon identifying these individuals, they realized that all of them were children residing not far from Lewis's home. It appeared that Lewis had been systematically compiling a list of potential future victims, awaiting the completion of his macabre subterranean prison. After his confession, Lewis was formally jailed, awaiting trial for attempted abduction. Investigators continued to visit him, seeking additional information. It was during one of these subsequent visits that Lewis unexpectedly revealed another horrific crime. Lent's confession expanded significantly. He disclosed that 4 years prior, in October 1990, he had been employed as a janitor at a movie theater in the very town where he later attempted to abduct Rebecca. On the evening of the 22nd of October, he observed 12-year-old James Bernardo cycling near the parking lot after leaving work. Lent immediately resolved to abduct him with the intention of assault. The parking lot was deserted, and his kidnapping kit was conveniently stashed in his van. Lewis lured James by offering him $5 to help arrange chairs in the empty movie theater, an offer James innocently accepted. Lent led him into the vacant theater, where he restrained him. He then maneuvered his van closer to the entrance, dragged the boy and his bicycle inside, and transported him to his home. He left James there, then drove to a nearby lake to dispose of the bike. After casting it into the water, Lent returned home and attempted to assault the boy, but was unsuccessful. He then decided to eliminate the victim entirely. He dragged James into his van and drove to a neighboring state, where he murdered him and abandoned the body in a forest. James Bernardo's remains were soon discovered by a hunter, who promptly reported the finding to the police. However, over the course of several years, detectives had been unable to identify the perpetrator. Now, comparing Lewis's detailed statement with the existing case files, investigators found that he provided an astonishing array of facts and specific details about this crime that perfectly aligned with the reality of James Bernardo's unsolved murder. Upon Lewis's confession to the Bernardo murder, news of his depravity rapidly disseminated across the country. Within mere days, police recognized they were dealing with a profoundly disturbed individual who had not only attempted to abduct a girl and was constructing a secret bunker for further victims, but had also admitted to a murder of which no one had previously suspected him. Investigators in New York, who were still actively searching for Sarah Ann Wood, became aware of Lewis's case. They meticulously reviewed the details of Rebecca Savarese's attempted abduction and requested more comprehensive information about Lewis himself. Crucially, profilers who had been working on Sarah's case noted that Lewis's characteristics strikingly matched the psychological profile developed for Sarah's potential abductor. Driven by this critical new lead, the New York investigators decided to directly confront Lewis. They traveled to the correctional facility where he was incarcerated, initiating an interrogation that would finally unravel the agonizing mystery of Sarah Ann Wood. During the questioning, Lent disclosed that he frequently traveled to the neighboring state, where he killed James Bernardo due to close relatives residing there. He also chillingly admitted that during some of these trips, he would purposefully drive through small towns, actively seeking out victims. It was on one such predatory journey, on the 18th of August, 1993, that he spotted Sarah. According to Lent, she was walking along the road with her bicycle beside her. Lewis pulled up alongside her, exited his vehicle, and using a firearm, forced the terrified girl into his van. He then restrained her and, in a cold, calculated move, dragged her belongings and bike a few yards off the road into the woods, intending to delay their discovery by passers-by. Following this, he drove Sarah hundreds of miles away from her home, deep into a mountainous region. He stopped in a secluded area near a large lake, where he assaulted and then killed her. Subsequently, he excavated a hole and interred her body. He also chillingly remarked that he was uncertain whether she had genuinely died or was merely unconscious during the burial, a detail that starkly highlighted his utter lack of empathy. However, despite providing this horrifying narrative, Lewis, for some unfathomable reason, consistently refused to disclose the precise burial location. Nevertheless, much like with his other victim, James Bernardo, he furnished detectives with a wealth of precise, verifiable details concerning Sarah's abduction and murder, leaving no doubt that he was indeed responsible for this abhorrent crime. Following Lent's confession, police immediately initiated extensive search operations in the vast wilderness surrounding the lake, he indicated. These efforts involved hundreds of dedicated volunteers, experienced park rangers, and even military personnel. However, they faced an immense logistical hurdle. Given the sheer scale of the terrain near the lake, thoroughly covering the entire area, even with such an impressive search team, was practically impossible. Furthermore, months had elapsed since the burial, meaning any potential gravesite could have become obscured by dense vegetation or altered by natural environmental processes. After several weeks of exhaustive searching through challenging conditions, they failed to locate either Sarah's body or any definitive physical evidence. Nevertheless, Lent's detailed testimony, rich with specific accounts of the abduction, was sufficient to formally charge him with the murders of both Sarah Ann Wood and 12-year-old James Bernardo. In January 1995, Lewis Lent was sentenced to 17 to 20 years in prison for the attempted abduction of Rebecca Savarese. The following June, the trial for James Bernardo's murder commenced, and Lewis pleaded guilty before the presiding judge. He also confided in his lawyer that he wished to immediately confess to Sarah's murder. However, upon entering the courtroom and seeing her parents, Robert and Jacqueline Wood, seated there, he inexplicably changed his mind. Yet, just 9 days later, when he was brought into an empty courtroom, he finally admitted his culpability in Sarah's murder. Despite this crucial admission, he continued to stubbornly withhold the precise burial site, disregarding the desperate and repeated pleas from Sarah's heartbroken parents. Eventually, the prosecution, determined to bring Sarah home, offered Lent a significant incentive in exchange for information leading to Sarah's whereabouts. They promised him that he would serve his sentence in a state prison rather than a federal one, a preference he had expressed. He accepted these terms and began what was termed working with investigators. Lewis identified a specific general area near the lake and even sketched a rudimentary map, while police also desired to include him directly in the ground search, hoping his presence would elicit more specific details. His legal counsel advised against it. Police subsequently organized extensive searches in the designated area, even contending with significant snowfall and freezing temperatures. They employed heavy excavation equipment and the unwavering assistance of hundreds of volunteers, but all their arduous efforts proved fruitless. They were unable to locate Sarah. Several months later, With the arrival of autumn and less ground cover, the police mounted another concentrated effort. But again, they were unsuccessful. Throughout this agonizing period, detectives repeatedly attempted to elicit more precise information from Lewis, but he steadfastly refused to disclose the exact location or provide clearer guidance. Ultimately, the prosecution, exasperated by his persistent obfuscation, decided to revoke the plea agreement. On the 11th of April, 1997, Lewis Lent was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for Sarah's murder. This represented the maximum sentence the judge could impose without the physical discovery of her body. The judge, in delivering his verdict, added a poignant statement: if such crucial evidence had been available, he would unequivocally have handed down a death sentence. During the trial, Lewis's lawyer sought to mitigate the punishment across all three cases. While not disputing his client's guilt, he contended that Lewis suffered from an undiagnosed mental disorder, asserting that Lewis claimed to hear voices in his head and even believed he had communicated with aliens. However, mental health experts found no credible evidence of any genuine mental illness, concluding that he was likely feigning symptoms in a calculated attempt to avoid severe punishment. Even after his sentencing, detectives continued their visits to Lewis in prison, clinging to the slim hope that he would finally reveal Sarah's burial site. His behavior remained conspicuously erratic. He offered police differing possible locations, frequently contradicting his previous statements. On one occasion, he chillingly declared that he was not prepared to disclose the location because he had interred Sarah next to another victim and did not wish for anyone to discover that individual's identity. Sarah's parents also made deeply personal, emotional visits to Lewis in prison, begging him to disclose their daughter's resting place, but he persistently remained silent, prolonging their profound suffering. Detectives also continued to consider Lewis's possible involvement in other unsolved cases. Almost immediately after his arrest and confessions concerning Sarah and James, police learned about another attempted abduction he had made several years prior. Lewis had tried to grab a girl from a street, but her father bravely intervened, forcing Lent to flee. They had reported the incident to the police at the time, but detectives couldn't identify the perpetrator until Lewis's photograph appeared in the news, at which point the girl and her father recognized him. Lewis was also a suspect in 4 additional unsolved disappearances that occurred between 1985 and 1992, spanning several states. Investigators determined that he possessed the means and opportunity to commit all these crimes, but no definitive evidence linking him was found, and Lewis consistently refused to confess to them. Despite his long imprisonment, Lewis Lent's narrative did not conclude there. Detectives maintained their visits even after his sentencing, hoping he would eventually reveal Sarah's whereabouts or confess to more crimes. This persistent effort finally yielded another breakthrough in 2013 when Lent, in an unexpected turn, suddenly decided to confess to an additional murder. He admitted responsibility for one of the very crimes he had long been suspected of. According to him, on the 6th of November, 1992, he abducted a 16-year-old teenager with developmental disabilities who was riding a bike to his grandmother's house. Lewis stated he forced the boy into his van, then killed him, and subsequently disposed of his body in a lake. Investigators confirmed his involvement based on his detailed description of the events, although official charges in this specific case have not been formally filed against him to this day. As of the current date, Lewis Stephen Lent Jr. is 73 years old and continues to serve his sentence for 2 murders and an attempted abduction. Sarah's parents, Robert and Jacqueline Wood, still harbor the profound hope that one day they will persuade him to reveal the burial site, or that he will finally disclose this agonizing secret before his eventual death. The family also steadfastly continues the vital work of the center they initially established to gather tips and distribute flyers. Over the years, their efforts have significantly expanded to assist in countless other investigations involving missing children, a commitment they uphold with unwavering dedication. Primarily focused on the rapid distribution of flyers and critical information, their tireless efforts helped reunite an astounding 399 children with their families in 2017 alone. In perpetual memory of Sarah, her relatives also organize an annual bicycle ride, which initially attracted only a handful of participants, but has steadily grown over the years into a major event. Currently, several thousand individuals regularly participate, also contributing to the raising of significant funds to support ongoing efforts to locate missing children. Law enforcement, for their part, remains resolute in their commitment to finding Sarah's burial site. Regardless of Louis Lent's future willingness to disclose this crucial information, they intend to continue conducting search operations in the areas he has indicated, employing every available resource and advanced technology until they ultimately succeed in locating her and finally bringing her home.